Okay, I think we're live now. The reason I waited so long, well, 30 seconds. Yesterday when I did my my skywalking, I think it was on Robbie Williams. I started talking and it didn't catch like the first like 20-30 seconds of what I said, so I wanted to make sure I caught that. But I want to talk about a topic which, again, is pretty salient. I like to do this. Marriage, the concept of marriage. And I think the reason I like talking about these issues is because they interest me, and they're, like I said, they're salient. Like I can't really talk to my family about this. They just, it just turns into somewhat of a shouting match. Not literally, but I think you know what I mean. There's no, people just get so emotional about certain issues, and I think marriage is one of them. And that's why I'm talking to an inanimate object right now instead of a person. No, I'm talking to real people, but they're just through the screen. So shout out to anybody listening. But I've never been married, and I never will be married. And I'm going to tell you why. I will never marry anyone. And what I mean by marry is the legal concept, the legal idea of marriage. What this guy's doing. I don't necessarily mean I will never commit long term to a single woman. And that's the thing that, honestly, my family would probably say, were I to bring this up, it would be something along the lines of, it's a Martin Luther King Jr. quote, something along the lines of, you hate women? You hate women, don't you, bro? And this is why I can't talk to them. I don't hate women. I love women. I don't like the concept of marriage. And the fact that it's governed by the state. Why would I allow a state actor, I'm gonna have to dodge this lawnmower. Why would I allow a state actor to get in between me and, for example, this is not marriage, my brother? Why would I allow the state to dictate what my relationship with my brother is like? I would never do that. So why would I allow the state to dictate my relationship with my girl? That doesn't make any sense. I'm not gonna, my brothers are my best friends, and I'm not gonna let some government institution dictate my terms with my brothers. So why would I let them dictate the terms with my woman? And it's not just about that principle. I mean, I was watching this video last night, and it was so sad. There's this, I don't know if anybody's seen this YouTube channel. I think it's called like the Homeless Project or something. No, the Invisible Project, I think it's called. And this guy, he basically goes around and talks to homeless people. And lo and behold, 80% of them are men. But you'll never hear that from the mainstream news. And this particular video that I saw last night, it was this guy who, he had 3 degrees in engineering. 3 engineering degrees. Okay, 1 engineering degree is difficult to obtain. This guy had 3 of them. And he was homeless. And do you know why he was homeless? Because his wife took everything. Now, granted, I don't know all the details, but this guy was First off, he had a great voice, but he was well-spoken. You know, you could tell he was intelligent. You know, he had a good head on his shoulders. Anybody with 3 engineering degrees is somebody who has, you know, an above-average IQ, or at least an above-average work ethic, right? And the fact that this man was homeless is just, it's just ridiculous. I mean, you go to court, any divorce court, the judge is always going to side with the woman, almost without regard to what actually is happening within the context of the marriage or the relationship. And again, what would probably, if I had this discussion with my family, what would they say? Oh, women have historically been the weaker party. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. What's up? What's up? Yeah. You looking for a hotel?
Yeah, we're just $27 short on the
Oh, I don't have any cash on me. I'm sorry.
All right.
Yeah. Cheers. Good luck, guys. And where was I going? Oh yeah. So what my family would have said? Like they would, you know, and this is not even my, you know, people who are older than me. This is like my generation of family. They'd get all emotional, all worked up, you know, saying, oh, you don't believe in women's rights. Like, you're not even listening, man. I'm talking about the concept of marriage as a state-run institution. And I understand where the legal system is coming from in so far as in the 20th century, women didn't really have a lot of say in you know, like the financial in particular, because that's what the real power is, right? Like the men had control of the money, and many men would abuse this, as you know, anybody in a sort of power position will inevitably do. So I understand that from a protecting the woman point of view, but I mean, this has gone way past that, okay? And it's not just marriage. I mean, I'm alone right now, thankfully. I like being alone. There's nobody else on the street. Oh, there's a car over there. But hypothetically, if I were to encounter a girl in my path right here, and she would call the cops on me, I would be arrested without question. And that's tangential to marriage, but the state shouldn't dictate, you know, the relationship that somebody has with their loved one, with their partner. That is a very unique and individualized individualized aspect of people's lives. You know, every relationship is slightly different. Every relationship has its own ins and outs and kind of uniqueness to it. There's a word, idiosyncrasies, right? That was the word I was looking for. And agreements, right? You know, some people, they like to be in relationships where the man leads, and some people, they like to be in relationships where the woman leads. And that's totally cool. And, you know, it's not always that way. Sometimes they take turns, you know, depending on the context, right? Alpha is a very contextual term, especially in terms of humans. It's not, you know, we are animals, but we're not base animals, right? You think of an alpha male, like a Western lowland gorilla, you know, it's a very two-dimensional definition that you kind of come up with in your head. But humans aren't like that, you know? For example, my cousin, I've helped him before with videography, and in the videography space, he's the alpha, and I'm just the beta, and I'm helping him out, you know? Whereas, you know, if I'm doing some weight training or fitness training with my cousin, I'm leading that, you know, because I just have a little more experience with that. And likewise with relationships, depending on the context, you know, maybe the man is leading, maybe the woman's leading. But with the state, it's not like that. With the state is leading, okay? And most of the money goes to lawyers, right? Divorce Corp, I think, is a documentary. And divorce, you know, the whole divorce system is $1 billion corporation, a $1 billion system. And most of the money goes to the lawyers. The rest of it goes to the woman. And the one who gets fucked is the man with the money. Right, they incentivize marriage, and this happens in the military too. You get more money. If you're in the military and you're married, you get more money per month. So people just do it, and I know this because I've been around the military in some facet or another for many years, just because I have many family members in the military and who work for the government. And I'm not completely anti-government at all. I love my country, and I think it's one of the, you know, the greatest countries ever. But we are really struggling right now in many ways. Our leadership is failing. Again, that's tangential. But as far as marriage goes, you know, it's not that I'm unwilling to commit to one person, and people shouldn't construe that this way. It's the amount of power you're giving away when you sign that paper. And I mean that as a man. Okay? When you're a woman, it's different. You are, in fact, gaining a lot of power if you're a woman. And again, this is not sexist, okay? The truth is not sexist, okay? There are differences between men and women. And these differences extend to, let's go this way. They extend to the legal realm. And especially the realm of marriage. You know, we've reached a point in Western society where men have all of the responsibility and almost none of the authority. And I'm not talking about CEOs, the government. Yeah, let's talk about cohabitation. I'm not talking about the very small demographic of hyper-successful men. And Jordan Peterson talks about this too. You got these radical feminists, Marxists, neoliberals. If you weren't married, it would be next of kin who would be his brother. Yeah, it's a business contract. It is. It's a business contract, marriage. And it's a business contract that I would never fucking sign, you know, in the business world. If I'm doing a business deal with someone, and, you know, part of the deal was that at any point in time, the man who I'm doing business with can just, on a whim, take away all of my money. Yeah. Check your state for legally. Yeah. So where was I? Let me go back to that in a second, guys. So why would I sign a business deal with a man? You know, maybe it's related to my YouTube page. You know, or like an advertiser wants to do a business deal with me because of my brand. Why the hell would I sign a business deal that stipulates that this guy who I'm doing business with, this company, can, on a whim, take away all of my money by going to the authorities? Nobody in their right mind would sign that. But that's what marriage is, man. That's what and what I mean by marriage is that is the legal contract dictated by the state. And it's just mind-blowing to me how more guys aren't like talking about this. It really is. And I realize I'm somewhat of an independent thinker compared to a lot of people. But you even got guys saying, and I don't blame them because I don't think it's naive to think this. They say, what, you got to sign a prenup first. But the thing is about prenups, they can be discarded by the judge. And people don't realize that either. Prenups don't guarantee you money. They don't guarantee protection. I mean, once you get in the system, they can do whatever the fuck they want to, okay? And if you're a man, you can almost be certain that they will. So even if you do get a prenup, that's no guarantee that you're protected. And let's just talk about cohabitation, because I just saw somebody commented. That's another thing too, is if you live with your partner long enough, that's legally, you know, regardless of whether or not you sign anything, that's marriage. And you're in the same boat. You're in the same boat. So, you know, I mean, I think that changes state to state. Yeah, it's called common law, right? And again, that's why, you know, she can stay over. She can have sleepovers. She's not going to live with me, though. You know, and I actually think that's better for relationships, to have that space, you know, to have that, because then I think the person feels like they're working for your time more, and, you know, they're not entitled to just waking up and being in your face and just deserving your time. And, you know, people can call me a narcissist or an asshole, but I don't give a shit, okay? This is my life, and this is my assessment of the entire situation. I mean, I think it's one of the biggest brainwashes of our society. One of the biggest bamboozles is the institution of marriage. Again, it's $1 billion system. The divorce system is $1 billion system. And I do think that I think the psychological health and emotional and mental health of children. Yeah, so let's talk about that, Val. I was just heading in that direction. So, the nuclear family, you know, I was just heading in that direction. I do think it's important that kids know and understand that their parents love each other, right? And to have that stability. But, you know, there's got to be a way around, you know, the nuclear family being stable and having to go through the state. And it's going to depend on what country you're in, what state you're in. But this is something that I feel strongly about. And people may say, well, that's very distrustful, misanthropic. But people are not static. People are not static. People are dynamic. People change. You know, the most evil people in the world, they didn't wake up one day and become evil. It's a slow process. You know, the person I was 5 years ago is a very different person than who I am today. And likewise, your spouse can change. Your spouse can turn on you. And you see this. I mean, look at Chris Watts for a very, very extreme example. Nobody thought that he was a killer. You know, nobody had an inkling that he was like that, you know? But he was. And again, that's a very extreme example, but you know, people, when you get really close to people and when you live with people, you see the darkest sides of them sometimes. And again, I'm not saying this is everyone, and you do gotta be really careful about who you date and who you select. And this is another problem I think particularly men have these days. They have no fucking standards. All they want to do is get laid. And they have no standard for women. And And this is a societal thing too. And I'm talking about America here, and particularly the West. Oh, nice. Let's go in here. Oh, fuck. Is, you know, and look, I'm not, again, people can do what they want. Honestly, one of my biggest values that I have is freedom, liberty to choose and decide how what you want to do with your life. That being said, I have standards for the women that I date, that I want to spend time with. My time is limited. I'm not going to be spending time with a woman who's, a hussy, as as the generation above me would say. And people nowadays, I can't even say that. Like, I can't say that because people are like, oh, you're a judgmental misogynist. And there might be some older people listening who don't realize this, but it's true. You cannot critique women at all for being promiscuous and for having no standards. You just have to accept all women at all times, regardless of how they behave. And that's not how I was raised, okay? My grandmother used to call me that. Yeah, that's a great rule. Never get involved with anybody you work with, man. And just, I want to continue on my standards thought here. Like, you're an asshole for having standards. And I did an interview with Rollo Tomasi, who is an author I really like to read. And he talks about intersexual dynamics. And especially intersexual dynamics in the context of 2020, of the modern world. And that's the thing too, is when people, when people try to discuss these things, is they use excuse me, I'm on my way to the grocery store right now. They use facts that are no longer true. Like, in the West, women have just as many opportunities as men. And I'm going to say this as a minority too. I have benefited from being brown. Okay? And I realize that. I don't think that's fair. I think you should get what you get based on merit. Meritocracy. There's the dogs. You should, that quality of opportunity, right? But that's not the way the world works. If you're brown like me, if you're black, if you're a woman, you're gonna get preferential treatment in today's world, and I don't agree with that. And so they use these facts that are no longer applicable, like, oh, women have it worse. No, they fucking don't. It's 2020, man. You gotta wake up. Women do not have it worse than men in terms of, equality of opportunity in the West. And this is something that especially young, particularly millennial women, I don't think older women really think this way as much. I think they realize how much things have changed more so than younger women. I could be wrong about that, but Zoomers and millennials, they just I feel like they get brainwashed by the universities too. Despite the fact that they have every opportunity in the world, they get told that they don't. They get told that they're oppressed. And these white women who have never even fucking left the country have no idea how good they have it. I was in Central Asia last year, and it's a Muslim country that I went to. It was in Uzbekistan. In the olden days, they had this thing called a housewife. Yeah, man. And like, if I say I want a housewife, calls me sexist, call me misogynist, you know, and it's ridiculous. Just because I want a more traditional, you know, relationship, it makes me some sort of chauvinist. But believe it or not, there are women out there who want that. They want a more traditional relationship. And just going back to what I was saying, I was in Uzbekistan last year, and it's a Muslim country. You need new friends. Yeah, well, not so much my friends as my family. You can't really pick new family, can you? And it's not all the time. It's not all the time, but it's enough to where I just don't discuss it anymore with them, or I don't want to. And again, I was in Uzbekistan last year, and it's a Muslim country, Muslim light, as someone in my family said. And you know, they have very traditional roles in terms of the man and the woman. And you know, it's okay for a man to date a woman that's much younger than him. You know, it's and I understand it's legal here, but you can't tell me people don't judge you for that, you know, which I think is stupid, especially once you think about biology and fertility. And I mean, they just have a lot more stability, I think, in those societies like Poland too, and Eastern Europe, where the nuclear family it's still valued, and it's still, you know, I guess a goal in a sense. And again, if I were to say this to some of these communists and some of these leftists, they say, oh, well, you don't want women to work, you don't want women in the workplace. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is the nuclear family stabilizes society. And I think we've reached a point now where hypergamy is so... Rollo Tomasi calls it open hypergamy. And look, I'm not trying... Again, there are these facts about human nature which make people really uncomfortable. I'm gonna sit down for a second. These facts about human nature that make people really uncomfortable, like the idea of women's hypergamy. And what is hypergamy? Hypergamy is the act of marrying up in your social class. And this, for better or worse, is how women select mates. And the more evolved women, the women who are mature and comfortable with themselves, they control this. They get married or they get in a relationship and they control that. But some women don't control it, and you know, they get married, but they don't stop looking for a boyfriend, right? Or they get a boyfriend, they don't stop looking for another husband. And a lot of guys don't understand this, and a lot of women don't understand this about themselves either. And we've reached a point in society in the West where, because there's no shame, not shame, I guess guilt maybe? Because shame is more of an internal thing. Guilt is society putting it on you, which I don't really agree with you know, guilt. It's not even a real emotion. But we've reached the point where it's acceptable for a woman to cheat on her husband, or acceptable for a woman to cheat on her boyfriend, and there's absolutely no consequences. I saw this another case where the man and his wife, the wife had been cheating on the man with another guy, and the guy who had to pay, and this is kind of funny because you actually don't hear about this that often. This guy, I think he sued the guy who was banging his wife, and he actually got compensated. He got compensated for the fact that this guy was sleeping with his wife. But why is there no penalty for the wife? That's my question. Simple question. Simple question. Is there no responsibility allotted to women who just open their legs like that? You know, I mean, at what point do they have to take responsibility for their own actions? Seriously. Another thing too I saw is, and this is in England, somewhat tangential. I think she was early 20s, university age, blonde girl, pretty. She stabbed her boyfriend with a knife and nothing happened. Absolutely nothing. Because she has a vagina and she's of a certain socioeconomic level. She's going to university to become a doctor. So she has a lot of potential. But if that was me, if I stabbed my brother, if I stabbed my girlfriend, I would be in jail. And then nothing, absolutely nothing happened to this girl. It's just insane. And again, that's tangential to what I'm talking about as far as marriage. But the point I'm trying to make again is the responsibility thing. At what point do women in the West have to take responsibility for their actions? Because we reach to the point where, again, it's entirely the man's responsibility, and it's entirely the woman's authority. And that is just a recipe for tyranny. So, marriage. Will I ever get married via the state? Of course not. Will I ever commit to someone long term? Yeah, I think I will. Yeah, and you know, there is bad stuff on both sides. Again, I'm not trying to paint it one way or another, because I have read Betty Friedan. And a lot of these feminists, they haven't even read Betty Friedan. They haven't even read the source text. You know, I have read the feminine mystique. And all these so-called feminists, they haven't even read the feminine mystique, which is, you know, that was the first the first book that kind of put feminists on the map, so to speak. And I believe strongly, again, in choice, in choosing, being able to choose. But people have to live with the consequences of their choices, and that includes men, that includes women. And it just seems to me that if a woman cheats on his husband, it's the husband's fault, legally. Now, in the terms of the relationship, I think it kind of is the husband's fault in a way. But, you know, just going back to that case of those two men paying money, you know, it objectifies the woman too, you know. Like, the woman's just a piece of meat that the men have to pay for. If these women are so independent and so fiscally responsible, they should pay for their discretions. You know, for if they ruin their marriage, if they open their legs and ruin their marriage, yes, there's a man who's responsible for that, whoever is doing the cheating, or whoever the cheating guy is. But it takes two to tango, okay? It takes two to tango, and legally, that's just not the case. Legally, they don't see it that way. You know, as long as there's a man involved, he is going to be culpable. And again, it's not so much about gender, right? It's not so much against male or female that I see as it is the system, right? The system. The entire system of marriage in the West. The entire system of divorce proceedings in the West. You know, it's just not fair. And that's why I have respect for women who divorce their husbands amicably, and they don't just completely fuck them over and take all his money, because they can easily do that. And there are women like that. There are women who, you know, they split up with their men, and the men split up with their women, and they're both responsible adults, and, you know, they take care of it like adults. But unfortunately, more often than not, that's not the case. And, you know, you see this when love turns to hate. You know, people just show their darkest sides, and that's kind of the point I was making earlier, is that the person you divorce is not the same person that you married. And that person that you married, as wonderful as they were, you know, the person you're fighting in court is a completely different person. And again, and this is probably going to be coming from younger women complaining about, you know, I guess the points I'm making here is you can't have it both ways. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You know, it's like the like women complaining about, oh, chivalry is dead. Chivalry has died. Well, fuck yeah, chivalry's dead. What did you think was gonna happen? You know, like, why do you need me to open the door for you if, you know, it takes daily work? Yeah, that's right. Actually, that's a great point, Patty. Let me just finish this chivalry point. You know, women complaining about, oh, guys don't open the door anymore. What the fuck did you expect? You know, when there's no, you know, that's the old social code. That's the old social contract. That doesn't apply anymore. Again, you can't have your cake and eat it too. And Patty just made a great point. And that's that, nowadays, especially my, you know, my generation and the Zoomers, I guess as they're called, I'm not really sure where generations end and begin. It seems like I always get a different answer based on who I ask. But, you know, we live in such a cancel culture with Tinder and Bumble and, you know, all these dating apps that, how old are you? Guess. How old do you guys think I am? You know, with Tinder and Bumble, that you can just cancel people right away, like, and this is something Mr. Dawson, that's a good guess. Mr. Dawson said, is that young people, you know, if somebody bothers them or the person they're dating, they don't like something that happened, they can just, you know, just swipe left or swipe right, you know. There's always another person around the corner. 86. And, you know, I'm guilty of this too, but I think people that maybe criticize people for doing that, you know, they don't understand what it's like to date nowadays. You know, that's another thing Rolo says is, well, not even Rolo, just a lot of guys that I follow, is that romance is dead, you know, for young people. And I think it's probably maybe a couple, god dang it, maybe a couple years older than me and below. Like, romance has been dead for a while. And for the older people that understand this, I think they do feel kind of bad for the young people in a way who don't have, you you know, who don't know how to navigate dating nowadays, let alone fucking marriage. And this is actually a point that I was going to make earlier with regards to hypergamy, is because there is no buffer, social buffer against hypergamy right now. It's been removed, right? There's no consequences for women cheating on their men, or for, you know, being polyamorous or anything like that. Which, again, I don't have any problem with that if other people are doing it. But my girlfriend is not going to be hanging out with other men. Okay? And again, there's no consequences for that. And because of that, I think our really primal natures are coming out. And what I mean by that is this. So, humans are complex, right? That being said, we do have patterns and behaviors that we kind of adhere to. And in the realm of sexuality, the alpha male rules. Similar to certain apes. The Western lowland gorilla. And again, I'm not saying that I agree with this. I'm saying this is the base primality for humans, right? So when, you know, in the olden days, when there's a good chance that half of your kids are gonna die, there's a good chance that your sons are gonna die in war, there's a good chance that your daughters are gonna die in giving birth, you know, humans have to behave differently in order to contend with those dangers. Now, we don't have those dangers anymore. You know, women dying in childbirth is extremely rare. I never had to go to war, thankfully. Ever since World War II ended, you know, men haven't had to go to war. But I mean, with the exception of Vietnam, of course. And what I mean by that is, before, like, Vietnam and, like, prior to that, if you're a man and you're not elite, you're probably gonna have to go to fight a war, whether you like it or not. And how am I tying this into sexuality and marriage? Well, in those situations in the past where women were dying in childbirth and men were dying in war a lot more often, and bottom line, there was more death in general and a much higher mortality rate. Humans had to act differently to contend with surviving. And in terms of sexual selection, and this is based off what I've read, and not only what I've read, but what I've observed as well in college, okay? And that's this, the alpha male rules, okay? There are exceptions, and we're not gorillas, I understand that, but think about it this way. Who do you think gets more sex? A professional athlete or a garbage man? Don Draper or the grade school teacher? I don't think I have to explain that. And that comes from our primate origins. And there's the argument the feminists like to use of the bonobo ape. Bonobos. If anybody is familiar with bonobos, they are, yeah, exactly. And yeah, it's not wrong. That's just the way we are. That's just the way humans are, you know? And Jordan Peterson talks about this too. I'm going to go back to the bonobo apes in a second here. Is that most of our ancestors are female. I'm going to say that again. Most of our ancestors are female. And you might say, I was explaining this to my younger brother. He was like, how does that make any sense? Because you need a man and a woman to make a baby. And the reason for that is, well, yeah, you need a man and a woman to make a baby, but you only need one man. You get 10 women and one man, you know, say your village is wiped out. Get a village of 200, your village is completely wiped out, except for you, the man, and 8 women, right? Well, in 2 years, you just tripled your population. But what's the other situation? Your village is wiped out, and there's 8 men and 1 woman. In 2 years, you've only added 2 new people. You haven't even doubled your population. So it's a numbers game with, in terms of, you know, because eggs are way more valuable than sperm. Sperm is cheap. Eggs are extremely valuable. Women only have, you know, so many eggs throughout their lifetime. Whereas men, you know, right now, I'm making about 1 million sperm a second. Whereas a woman, she might only have, what is it, like 30 or 40 eggs that are really high quality eggs throughout her lifetime, if that. So because of that, women have selected for alpha males, and that's why most of our ancestors are women, because on average, if you're a man, you either had 2 kids or you had none. And that's not even taking into account the extremes, like Genghis Khan, who had millions of babies, or tens of thousands, something like that. Yeah, I don't think it's millions. I want to say it's tens of thousands. Or other really powerful men who had just harems and just had lots of babies. So you either had 2 kids or you had none. And that's why most of our ancestors are female. And just going back to bonobos, it's another dog. Just going back to bonobos, so bonobo apes are a matriarchal species of apes, and they don't have alpha males, and they don't know who the sires are, right? So they don't know who the fathers of the babies are, and the reason for that is because the females, they just have sex with everyone, basically. And they're very open sexually. Bonobos are. They're bonobo society and bonobo sociology is very open sexually. You know, there's not really a whole lot of male on male conflict. And because of that, you know, they don't know who the fathers are. And you know, these I'm gonna hold my tongue. I almost just said something kind of mean. These feminists who claim that we are more related to bonobos than Western lowland gorillas, I mean, I don't really know how they are, you know, supporting that argument. One, human females are quite choosy, all right? They're quite selective with who they have sex with. Bonobos are not, okay? Bonobos fuck anything. Bonobo females and bonobo males, they just fuck anything. So you claiming that we are more like bonobos and therefore matriarchal is a load of hogwash as far as I'm concerned. Because I go out and you know, in society, and I went to university, which is a very quite sexualized environment. And I can tell you 100%, and I think I'm a decent looking guy, is human females don't have sex with anyone and everyone, okay? So I don't really know where feminists are coming with that sort of, you know, argument that we are more like bonobos than Western lowland gorillas. That being said, we aren't exclusively, you know, polygynous, right? One male, multiple females. And that's where marriage comes in, is it stabilizes society. Because by definition, in a polygynous alpha male kind of sexual hierarchy, that entails male on male violence, or at least conflict of some sort, because it's zero sum. There's a winner and there's a loser, right? And marriage stabilizes society, but I think it's been hijacked by the government. It's super corrupt, and it's just about making money. It's about taking the money from the man, giving it to the state, giving it to lawyers, and it's just a big shakedown on especially wealthy men who, you know, because, you know, poor men who get divorced, they don't really have, you know, a whole lot to give to the state or lawyers or governments. And so what we're seeing now is, just, I'm tying it back to the points I was making earlier. Because there's no buffer against women's hypergamy in the West like there is in the East, you are seeing men, you are seeing men and women and just humans in general, especially young people, regressing. I don't even want to say regressing. It's just kind of revealing our really primal instincts, those alpha male gorilla behaviors that we have. And because of that, you have less and less people having sex. And you see this in articles. Why is that? Why are less and less people having sex? Well, I'm going to tell you why right now. The reason for that is because the women are only having sex with a very small number of men, because that's how they naturally select. You know, women, they only find a small group of men attractive. The rest of them are straight up unattractive, and this is documented. And it's not politically correct to say, but when you don't have that buffer against hypergamy, and there is no consequence for cheating on your wife or cheating on your husband, women can do what they want, and what they're going to do is they're going to pick the alpha males. And by definition, that is at least, at most 20% of the males, but probably closer to 10%. And because of that, you have less people having sex. You have, and I think this is contributed to incels. Alex Manassian in Canada, for example. You know, you have these incel groups coming up. And look, I know this is, and this is one I want to clarify too. I'm gonna sit again for a second. It's not exclusively women's fault. Okay, this is a two-way street, and I want to make that very clear. It's up to men. It's up to it's your responsibility as a man to work on yourself, to make yourself attractive, to have ability to communicate with women, to have an ability to communicate with men too, and not to feel entitled to a woman's body, which I think is I think that's a problem as well. That being said, I don't think society is making it easy on men, on young men especially. So again, because there's no buffer, what are women going to do? And I'm talking about young women in particular here, because that's the generation that it's kind of affecting the most. They're going to go for the athletes, the rappers, the really good looking, the alpha males, right? The 10%, 15%, 20% of men. Because I mean, there's just no incentive to do otherwise now, right? I mean, it's completely okay for a woman to be cheating on her boyfriend, or fucking her boyfriend over. Like, I was hanging out with these girls earlier this year, and two girls, French girls, and excuse me. And I was talking to them. I was like, this is after like a couple hours of hanging out, and then we're back in my apartment. And I was like, y'all boyfriends? And they both had boyfriends. And I was like, okay. Do your boyfriends know that you're here with me right now, alone? And they just laughed. They just laughed. They thought it was funny, which, you know, I'm not saying it makes them evil, but I was like, man, I would not want to have you as my girlfriend. Like, You know, if I found out my girlfriend was hanging out with other dudes and just laughing about it, like, I mean, that definitely would be warrants for dismissal in my book. But that's the thing too, is guys nowadays, they just don't have that those standards, and they don't enforce those standards for women. And I think part of that is because of this kind of open hypergamy polygyny that's going on. So what was the objective of marriage? Outside of religious context, is to stabilize society, to prevent male-on-male conflict, to prevent incels from, you know, going crazy and running people over with cars and stuff like that. So I think that the concept of marriage, I think it stabilizes society, you know, putting a man and a woman together, and the nuclear family stabilizes society, and I think it stabilizes the children psychologically as well. But again, it's been hijacked, and the system of marriage, the institution of marriage, is corrupt now. It's been hijacked by the government, by private interest groups, particularly lawyers, and it's just dangerous. And it's kind of sad, to be honest. I mean, because there are people out there who would like to, you know, get married and have it be official, but I think the people and the guys who are thinking about it rationally realize that the risks far outweigh the benefits. And again, that doesn't mean that you can't commit to one person, and it doesn't mean that I won't at some point do that. But having a government and lawyers with their hands in my pockets and their hands in my personal life, trying to dictate my relationship with my girl, is not something that is ever gonna happen. So that is way longer than I thought it was gonna be. I've been chatting for about an hour now. Hope you guys enjoyed this talk. I actually don't know where I am right now. I've been walking around aimlessly kind of throughout these residential neighborhoods, trying to get some good quiet vibes. I just want to look at the chat real quick here, see what you guys have been doing quite good with the just going ham on this conversation. I think it's been a really good convo in the chat. I just want to thank you guys for contributing, and I'm gonna try to talk to Mr. Shrimp later today. I'm gonna text him. Actually, I'm gonna give him a call and see what time he wants to chat. So that'll be coming out either today or tomorrow. And then I got another COVID roundtable tonight with actually an Oxford professor, and really smart dude. He's an inventor too, so that should be really cool. We talk about some cool stuff. Paul, I'm gonna get Paul on soon. He was busy last weekend, some shit came up, but I want to get him, and then me and him really want to talk to this one dude who I want to talk to as well. And then I know Dr. Cottrell wants to chat with him too. So be on the lookout for that. Thanks for watching this skywalking, guys. Dealing with skywalking on marriage, shit no one teaches you. I hope this was helpful. Let me know your thoughts. Are there flaws in my argument? Are there holes in my thinking? Let me know. Have a good day, guys.